What do you understand by super? And someone says, super. What is it? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Super. I think super is basically at its highest form. At its highest form, something becomes super. It's like saying great. Super, it's at the best of it. At the highest form, is super. So superlative, it's considering something at the third level, at the best level. So it's a comparison between three or more things. It becomes superlative. It's not two, because two is comparative. But three or more becomes superlative. So you're trying to compare three or more things or three or more situations. It becomes superlative. And so it's the use of an adjective or an adverb in describing, you use it. It's a form of adjective or adverb in which you've been described to compare three or more situations or three or more things. That is when you have the superlative. So it is basically three or more. To compare, it's a comparison of three or more. It's a comparison of three or more adjectives or adverbs. Of adjectives or adverbs. Or adverbs, three or more. And then there are certain rules that apply to it. Number one is the aces. Number one, if it's just a one syllables adjective, just one adjective, one syllables adjective. For example, number one, for example, tall. Tall. You just add est, it becomes tallest. Tallest. It becomes tallest. Simple. One adjective, small. So one syllable, small. You just hear one thing, small. It becomes smallest. It becomes smallest. Smallest. But what if, in a case where there are three or more, not two, because I told you that superlative is a comparison of three or more adjectives or adverbs. So if there are, number two is, if there are three or more adjectives or three or more syllabuses in an adjective or an adverb, three or more syllabuses in an adjective or an adverb, you add most. Let's look for an adjective that has three or more syllabuses. For example, beautiful. That's one syllabus. T, two syllabuses. Full, three syllabuses. Beautiful, it becomes most beautiful. Most beautiful. Most, three syllabuses. Most beautiful. Tall, small, beautiful. What about, give me another adjective or adverb. Let's check for an adverb. Attentively. Attentively. It's an adverb because you have li in the verb. This is an adjective because it describes. So attentively. Attentively, it has four syllabuses. It's most attentively. Attentively. For example, beautiful. Kayla is the most beautiful of her class. Kayla is the most beautiful of her class. It means amongst all the girls in her class, she's the top of the top. Kayla is the most beautiful of her class. What about attentively? Attentively. Isaiah is most attentive, listens most attentively in the class. Isaiah listens most attentively of all the kids in the class. Tall. My mom is the tallest of all. Small. I'm the smallest of all the girls. Smallest. And then then number 3, what if the adjective ends in Y? What do? We take out, we remove, we blot out the Y, we remove the Y and add IEST. For example, silly is an adjective. Oh, he's so silly. Silly becomes silliest. Dry becomes the driest. Early, earliest. The earliest time to be at work is 6 a.m. The earliest time to be at work is 6 a.m. The earliest. Senegal is the driest of all. Silly. Paul is the silliest of all. Silly. So when there's a Y in the adjective, we take out the Y and add IEST. When there are 3 or more syllables in an adverb, we add most. Most comes before the adverb. We add most plus the adverb. And then when it's just one syllable's adjective, you add EST. But then in the same rule for the superlative, of course, there are always irregular forms. We're not going to say good, and then the superlative of good cannot be goodest. That's not correct. So there are some irregular forms, just like we did with single and plurals. There are always irregular forms, and it's you to go to the research and see. But the most ones are this. Good. What's the superlative of good? It's best. The best student. I told us that it's the top. It's the highest form. So good. The super of good is best. The super of bad is worse. Worst. That is the worst meal I ever ate. Worst. And then far. What's the superlative of far? It's either farthest or farthest. Depends on you. It depends on you. Far. What's the superlative of far? It just depends on you. It just depends on how you see it. Far, farthest, or furthest. Or furthest, sorry. And then you have much, most. So these are some of the ways of getting the superlative. Please pay attention to the different forms, the rules to superlative. 1 syllabus adjective, you add ES. 3 or more syllables adverbs, you add most before the adverb. And of course, some of the adjectives or adverbs that end in Y, we take out the Y and EST, except of course for the irregular forms. And superlative just means the best, the highest form of it, the toppest form of it. So it's a comparison of 3 or more syllabuses in an adverb or in an adjective. And then we've talked about the complement clauses, we've talked about the tag questions. We should be able to pronounce well, about your pronunciation should be proper. We know about the vowels and the consonants. Of course, we know in English there are five vowels, the A, the E, the I, the O, the U, the A, the E, the I, the O, the U. Those are the five vowels. And then the other ones are the consonants, the B, the K, the D, the F, the J, the H. We need to know the pronunciations and the phonetics, so you'll be able to pronounce properly. And so these are the grammar for today. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed yourself. I hope that you learned. I'll see you next time. Stay well and go out and reach the moon. Thank you, teacher. Jana tukara masona manga jangale gita do bouger do faywa. Nge elef to tolo chi exam linga sarla am na fita mo gena.